area rug will fit a 12 by 24 room? Hi everyone, it's interior designer Carol Gilman. Let's discover interior design. Well, that question was left by a wonderful viewer on one of my videos that's part of my Ask the Designer series. And that video had to do with finding an area rug in relationship to the size of a sofa or sectional. And if I were going to give a quick answer for that question, I would say, well, what about a 9 by 12 or a 12 by 18 area rug? But we would have to kind of step back and find out more information about that room before we really could make a recommendation. So in this video, we are going to go through the process of figuring out a rug size in relationship to the size of a room and what we need to take a look at so we can get an accurate idea of how much space we really have. So one of the first things that we need to take a look at is just to get the overall size of a room. If you want a step-by-step process of how to measure a room, I have a video all about that. So I'll leave the link to that video in this video's description. But what you can do just to get the overall length and width or depth of a room, just measure along the floor from one trim baseboard to the other wall's baseboard and make those measurements in feet and then inches. And when you do this, I recommend for you to draw out a simple floor plan on a piece of graph paper or use an online space planning tool. Or if you're just in your room measuring, just take down those measurements so you have them handy. So for example, in our viewer's question of what size a rug will fit in their room, they mentioned that their space is 12 by 24 feet in size. And I'm assuming that's their overall size of their room. So we're going to use that as our example as we go through this process. And since I don't know the layout of this room, I created a layout of a room that we can use as we go along. Then after we have those overall measurements, we need to refine our measurements. This is where we need to go back in and take a look at any built-in features that are on the floor where we wouldn't be able to place an area rug. So what we need to do is look at each of those walls and anything near that wall where we may need to update our measurements. And there are some common features, built-in features in our room where we won't want to place an area rug. And they include heating and cooling registers, a radiator, and even a fireplace hearth. There may be less common features such as columns, steps, or maybe even built-in cabinets or a window seat that kind of sticks out a little into the room. You may even have a door that swings open into the room, or you may even want to leave or set aside space for a walkway. So to get a more accurate idea of what we're working with, let's take a look at the floor plan view of our example room again. And let's just take a quick tour going around clockwise to see what we have going on in that room. Let's start at the far right wall. We'll notice that there is a less common feature in this room, which is a step that goes down into that room. Then on the lower wall, we don't have anything on the floor that's near the walls. Then on the wall on the left, we'll notice that it has a window, and we'll notice it has one of the common features, which is a heating and cooling register on the floor in front of the window. Then our last wall at the top, we'll notice it has some common features like a fireplace in the center with a hearth that goes out into the room just a bit, and a register in front of the top right window. So what we would want to do is to take new measurements to find out a more accurate estimate of the space that could be available for an area rug. We would start on the left wall where we would not measure out from the wall's trim baseboard, but from the outside edge of that heating and cooling register. Then we would measure all the way over to the right side, to the wall on the right, and measure all the way over to the outside edge of the step and not to the baseboard trim on that wall. Then we would make a note of that measurement, which is 22 feet. Then we would start at the bottom wall and we'll measure out from the baseboard since we don't have any built-in features along that wall on the floor. Then we'll measure all the way over up to that top wall. We'll notice that the hearth is deeper than the depth of where that heating and cooling register comes out into the room. So we'll want to measure up to the outer edge of that hearth. And we'll make a note of that measurement, which is 10 feet. And you'll notice that all we're doing is measuring out from the outside edge of whichever feature is farthest out into the room. And this would go for, say, a window seat that maybe sticks out a little bit in a room. You would do the same thing and measure out from the edge of that window seat. Or if you want to set aside a pathway, such as in this room where you don't want to have an area rug, you would measure out from the baseboard trim out to the edge of where that pathway width ends. Now we can create a new frame or new rectangle that we'll see in the room, which lets us know how much space we really have to work with for an area rug. And then one feature that I want to spend a little bit of time on is if you have a door that opens up into a room. And we always want to make sure that we can easily open and close that door, that it opens and closes and swings out and swings closed smoothly. And when we think about it, if we take a look at our room, and we will notice that we have current flooring already, and we could just say we have wood flooring already, and we can easily open and close a door because everything is in relationship to one another. There is a thickness to that wood floor, and that door is in relationship to that height of that floor. And so there's just enough room, just enough space in between the door and that wood floor so that it will open easily. If we decide to add in another type of flooring on top of that wood floor, like an area rug, well, that is going to change the height of that floor. And depending on the type of area rug that we place on that floor, it may impact how easily we can open and close that door. If you have a door that swings open into your room, there are a couple things that you can keep in mind. One is to find out the thickness of an area rug that you are interested in placing in that room, and find out what the height is of that area rug, and then also measure how much space you have between the bottom of the door to your current floor. And is that area rug going to be too high, the pile too high, or maybe there is just enough room for that to work. And each area rug is a little different, and the design and how those area rugs are made, it will vary. And so there could be some very plush area rugs that have a higher pile, or there could be a much flatter woven style of area rug where it has a much lower profile. So just take note of those things to see if that will work in your room. And then the other option is to not even have to worry about that. So that means you'd want to set aside some space before you have the area rug in your room so that when you open the door, it doesn't interfere with the area rug. So that means just opening your door all the way and measuring out from the side of your door to the other side of the room to find out how much space you have. One thing I would recommend doing is leaving a little bit of wiggle room. So not the exact measurement from the door edge to the other side of the room. I would leave maybe 6 inches or maybe even up to 12 inches or even more before you would place an area rug in relationship to that door. But that's kind of up to you and what will work for your room. So let's go back to our example room and look at that question again and see if those rugs I mentioned at the beginning of this video would work in there. Well, now the size that we have for an area rug in that room has been reduced. It started out being 12 by 24 feet in size. Well, now we know after taking more accurate measurements that the room that we have, or the space that we have for an area rug, is 10 feet by 22 feet. With that original measurement, I mentioned, well, how about a 9 by 12 or a 12 by 18 size of area rug? Well, the 9 by 12 would still work, but we're not able to use the 12 by 18 because the space we have is now only 10 feet deep. But there is another standard size that we could have as an option, and that would be a 10 by 14 size area rug. So we would have two options, and we would just need to decide which one we would like better. In fact, if you were planning this room out, which area rug size would you choose? Would you choose A, a 9 by 12, or B, a 10 by 14 size? So share your choice in the comments. So after you have a better idea of really how much space you have in your room and what sizes of area rugs may fit in there, there are a couple other things that I recommend for you to keep in mind. One of them is try to choose the rug that is the largest, that will fit in your room. Think of something large enough to fit your conversation area, such as in a living room, or to fit your bed and nightstands as in a master bedroom. And choose two different sizes like we did in that room example that may work. And area rugs are available in numerous standard sizes and shapes, but if you're looking for a larger size, I recommend shopping at furniture stores, flooring stores, and of course, stores that specialize in area rugs, because those types of retailers are more likely to carry larger sizes. Then, if you have a question that you'd like to have considered to be part of my Ask the Designer series, please share that in the comments. And if you have any questions about area rugs, please share that in the comments as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.